Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. And welcome to the show, everybody. We've got a very interesting show and a very delightful man that's going to be here. Purcell's going to be here when she can. I don't know, get her makeup on and comb her hair and all that kind of stuff. But she'll be here, and we're talking with Steve Hoskinson, and he is the CEO and head bottle washer of something called Organic Intelligence. And so we're going to talk about that. He's also got a coaching program that he certifies people to go into organic intelligence so that they can learn and help other people figure out what that is. But so I guess, Steve, I got to ask, first off, what in the world is organic intelligence?
Thank you so much, Kevin, for having me on. It's such a delight to hang out with you again. And just to say organic intelligence is good news because we all got it. It is what our birthright is. It is how our system is meant to operate. And so when we're feeling out of whack, out of sorts, or otherwise, troubled, there is an avenue of support that's available all the time. And we just train our coaches to recognize where that avenue of support is arising from within the client themselves, and then reflect that back so that it can do what it's there to do, which is not just to make us feel better, but to make us operate better. And that's a pretty cool thing.
How'd you come up with this?
Well, I trained in clinical psychology. I have a background in contemplative practice. I was really looking for what your show talks about. Like, what's the purpose? What's the meaning of this? What is it that really matters? And what mattered to me and matters to me is that people are not suffering needlessly. And so I went into the contemplative practice, meditation and prayer, and went into then clinical psychology. And then I tell people I ran off and joined the somatic circus. Like, what is this mind-body interaction? And the answer is organic intelligence, how we are meant to be self-healing, self-correcting, and that's the magic.
But you have to be aware enough, don't you?
You would think so. But there is good news. Your awareness doesn't have to be so hot. You get into a session like with an OI coach, and our approach is we just have a conversation, just like we're having right here. Just a normal everyday conversation. Might be about the ride into the office, or what you had for dinner last night, or the last movie you saw. It doesn't matter, because we understand that who is speaking is this organismic process, and you can't juke that. You can get it sidetracked by talking about trauma, by talking about your past, by talking about a whole host of things. But if you just engage in that natural conversation, it's the system that's speaking, and we train our folks to see the system behind the words. And then we're addressing that system, that biological system that has this main aim. The main aim is being better, feeling better, being more operational, better problem solving. The whole thing that we think is important is just waiting for us.
Now, when you're talking about organic intelligence, are we talking about just the physical side, or there's also a spiritual side, and it's all kind of put together there in a way that creates the operation that a human operates underneath because of some of the spiritual side and the meditative side and the things, and also then the physical stuff that goes along with it. So are you it's got to be like a huge puzzle that you guys are putting together.
That's such a perfect analogy, actually, and because it is a complex puzzle. That's why it took me a while to figure this out. But we have a class called From Biology to Cosmos, and so we understand complex systems. It's based in a science, actually, that's used all over the world in many different things, from stock market to city planning to estimating how wildfires are going to burn and modeling that. So there's a legit science that understands how complex systems change and grow. And what we've done is applied that understanding to the human biology. But what that means is, in our experience, is that there are all of these layers that go together. So biology to cosmos, from that simple biology, which is a complex system, all the way up into the person's relationship with, what really matters, the big picture. And so all of those are on the table according to how that fits into the person's worldview and belief system.
So in the opening, I talk about why we're here and what are we here to do. And that seems to be a major question that almost everybody that I've ever talked to says to themselves at one point in time. And it could be between when they're 25 or 30 to 50 to 70 to 90. At one point you say, well, I don't think I've gotten this right, because this doesn't seem like this is all there is. And do you help people deal with their own insecurities around that so that they can find out why they're really here and what gifts they have and what they should be, what they could be doing if they choose to, and that kind of thing? You're speaking our language now.
Yeah, the big picture is the thing. Like, what is it that you're here for? And culture and society has answers for you. Hey, you're here to create production. You're here to fuel the capitalist machine. You're here to be of service to your boss, and all of that. Or right? All of these things that we should feel insecure about because they're not real answers. They're intermediate answers at best. And so what we're looking for is also how the biology itself, how our early conditioning shapes us to expect certain things. And I don't know if let me ramble on a little science here, which is that when we are born and in our young formative years, the brain is really malleable, and it's basically going, okay, how am I going to fit into the world here? And you get a family that's a proxy for the world, and sometimes that works out pretty well, and a lot of times that family is nothing like the world out there. And so you've got this brain that is ready and shaped to take on the family that's out in the world, but the family is not out in the world. And so you always end up feeling on the back foot or feeling like an alien, like I don't fit in here, what is wrong? Because the brain is expecting certain things. And so what we do is that we recognize the way that the brain and the biology are trying to adapt to the present scenario. And it's difficult because that early imprinting is meant to get us along in the world. So it's not easy to change. But there are signs and signposts all along the way that if we're able to feed back to people those signs and signposts, they can begin to make those shifts, not by will, in effect, not by choice, but by simply receiving these basically unconscious messages from themselves. And it might be the hand on the side of a face. It might be a deeper breath. It might be these micro expressions that the biology is sending to get itself back into sync with the world.
That's a beautiful explanation, because it makes so much sense, because when you're a little one, first of all, I have not found a family structure that is not without its problems, and everything. It's dysfunctionality in the family group is as big a problem, I think, as anything else. Is that what your research finds? Is that when when you are that young, malleable kid at 3 and 4 and 5 years old, people that you think, because they're bigger and stronger and they're probably louder, know more than you do, and that they're right all the time. But then they do stuff because they're not clear about who they are and how to deal with you in a positive way. So it causes lots and lots of issues.
Lots and lots of issues, lots and lots of issues that are nobody's fault to speak of, but that are created out of a variety of sources, like trauma. You know, my dad was in World War II, and there is trauma across the board, and there is sort of individual trauma that happens along the way. There is societal trauma. There is developmental trauma. And then there's a big one as well, which is we didn't grow up in your case, you know, like our ancestors, maybe 50, 100 generations back, didn't grow up in Seattle or,
No.
you know, Santa Cruz. They grew up in the woods. Our origins were in nature and as tribes of hunter-gatherer groups. And all of a sudden we got spat out of that. And then we land in this current situation. And it's no wonder that we're kind of scratching our heads going, what in the world is wrong with the world? And it's that we were meant to be embedded really in that tribal collection and in nature. And we've lost track of it. We're basically, you know, really right to feel insecure because we're homeless at the moment.
Well, and everything that we thought we knew and that we grew up believing turned out not to be true.
Yeah.
And so you don't know what that old expression, you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what is out there until you're confronted with it. Then you have to deal with it. And that becomes a problem all by itself, because then what you thought you knew as at one point fact turns out not to be anything of the kind. It's somebody's opinion.
Exactly. And one of the biggest ones in that area that we are trying to shift is that in the therapy world or in the healing world, that says you got to feel it to heal it. In other words, you've got to excavate your past. You've got to get to the root of the cause of the issue with your mother, your father, your family, the alcoholic environment, you know, all of that. You've got to figure that out, and then you can do something about it. And that's another one of those myths. And that's why organic intelligence, because we are working directly with the change at the level of the neurophysiology, just in normal human conversation. No excavating, no traumatic reenactments. It is positive talk.
Well, and what I found in my world is that while it is good to know, and there'll be people that disagree with this vehemently, but while it's good to know what happened, to reenact that and to relive it is not productive if you're going to move forward away from it. Am I even close?
Oh, totally. And there has to be something else. So for us, positive talk or positive mood states, positive affect, you know, all of that is just a preliminary step, because biology is working in cycles of ups and downs. Like the biology says, okay, we're waking in the period, the sun is up, and then we're sleeping, the sun is down. And those kinds of cycles are everywhere in the neurophysiology. You know, like when you breathe in, heart rate increases. When you breathe out, heart rate decreases. And those kinds of rhythms are meant to be nested. And when they are not nested, when they're not synchronized well, when they're not efficiently operating, then you have symptoms, problems, challenges. And so no amount of positive thinking is going to help that. You have to actually work with the cycles and the synchronization of the system. And that's what we train people to do in this ordinary, what we call a free association conversation.
I love the title of that. That's really cool, and so stress must play a big role in that because it does affect your breathing, and therefore it affects your heart rate, and it affects with your entire system because of the stress that you are undergoing, either real or, and this is the insidious part, which you need to help me with, imagined stress.
Totally. And we just defined stress. Stress is when your system is out of sync and it can't process the information that's coming at you, or it's too much. So maybe the brain is kind of like a CPU, central processing unit that has a limited bandwidth. And if the information trying to get through exceeds that bandwidth, that's stress. It's called allostatic load. And if you exceed the bandwidth of your load, then you're kind of sunk. You're really scurrying to try to get back into balance. And it's really difficult because maybe the stress is coming from inside. Maybe I'm imagining, like my brain is saying, okay, I'm expecting people to treat me poorly, to not think well of me, and maybe smack me if I say something wrong. That's the expectation, which increases the amount of intensity in the system and uses up precious bandwidth that we might use for productive means.
And that goes to everything. That could be in a sales call when you're walking in to do well, we need to take a break. And when we come, this is a fascinating discussion, Steve. And go to his website, which is organicintelligence.org, and you can find out all about what he does. I recommend you sign up for his coaching class because you can learn a tremendous amount, not only about how to help other people, but about yourself, because it starts with you, I would guess. I'll ask Steve when we come right back. Stay with us, everybody.
You became a real estate agent for freedom, success, and real momentum. So why are you still stuck waiting for closings to save you? I'm Ophir Adar, founder of Real Momentum, and I help agents like you become seven-figure earners. My first client that I coached, brand new agent, made $250,000 back in 2006. What's the secret? You feed your white wolf. That's the part of you that's bold and unstoppable and a closer and able to build rapport quickly. So click Get Listings at Real Momentum and let's unleash your real estate potential.
And welcome back to Positive Talk. And somebody has just come in and is her timing is really good. So I'm going to bring Rochelle on, and there she is.
Hi, Steve. How are you?
Hey, I'm happy that you could make it and enjoying the conversation with Kevin.
Yes, me too. I was just looking at your website over the break and getting my computer charged up, and I remember the interview we did with you, so I'm very, very excited to have you finally here.
Yeah, I'm really happy to be here.
And Rochelle, we were talking about organic intelligence and all of its forms, because it really is a body, soul, mind kind of thing, because it encompasses all of it and brings it all together. And we were just talking about stress and how it affects us in total. And it can come from a myriad of sources. It can come from, I'm late to be on a podcast, so I need to get here, or on the radio show, I need to get here as quick as I can. That's stress. Or if you're talking to somebody that you don't know and it's a sales call and you don't know how the outcome's going to be, that's stress. It affects your breathing, it affects your heart, it affects your mind and everything else. And organic intelligence, how do you help monitor that, and then also to lower the stress level, because stress is the biggest killer that's out there, I think.
Yeah, it is. And I think the foundational understanding really is around what stress is. And so we think of stress in terms of that, what's called allostasis in the science, but it is basically just how much information processing, how much intensity processing your system has. And if it's busy with like managing like a pain, and then you've got worries, and you got kids screaming, at some point, you know how it is. It's like, y'all are getting on my last nerve here. and that's a threshold. That means you've kind of used up your bandwidth, and you're kind of maxed, you're tapped, and then you're having to back up, decrease the load, and so on. What we do and what the coaching does is trains us to provide feedback to the individual in the moment, in a conversation that grows that bandwidth. So you can then just, it takes a lot more to tip you over the edge, and that's the magic.
That's
So
interesting too, because
oh, go ahead.
you're helping people. Well, it kind of sounds crazy because it's like, I'm going to stress you out and help you build your stress. But we talk about all these things like as if riding a bicycle or building a new muscle. Is that stress part of your brain? Is it like a muscle you're building, you're helping people achieve?
It rather is, and it is basically that your brain is all the time assessing what's happening. It used to be thought that homeostasis was a big thing, like your brain is going to keep things in balance. And so if something gets off, the blood pH gets off, the adrenaline, the cortisol is too much, it's going to process that and get you back to baseline. That's not actually the big job of the brain. The big job of the brain, neuroscience is clear about this, the big job of the brain is predicting. We have the predicting brain. So the brain is actually making predictions about what's coming and getting us ready for it in advance. So it's proactive, not reactive. And so that is a massive asset for us and reduces stress if we are able to help the brain in particular do that predicting. And so this is one of the things that we do that's totally different than most everything else out there. Is we focus not on our internal state, not on our feelings, our sensations, our thoughts, and so on, but we are getting the attention outside into the environment and connecting to the environment through the senses. And then that we are helping the brain get ready for what's coming. And it also tethers us to reality instead of all the interior ruminations about what I did and what they did and what I should have said and all that, all of that. And so just that, we call it orientation, connecting to the environment through the senses, is the groundwork of the whole thing, because it helps us get more balance. And then we can begin to do the work of growing the bandwidth.
Steve, I've always wanted to ask somebody who actually is a learned man who's got a clue. And so I'm going to ask you, because you know a lot of stuff. And that is, as a human person, and you line up two people, one loves adventure and he loves the unknown and he loves to go out and he can deal with that and deal with the unknown or what's there, and that excites him. And then you've got another person that's standing right next to him that frets and worries about the unknown and, oh my God, this is going to happen and I don't know what to do and stuff. What makes them different? Since we all have the same brain, why aren't we all operating the same way? But there's just a huge difference in that.
There is a huge difference in that. And personality theorists, are speculating on that. This is the area that's called like trait psychology, for instance. But there are numerous factors, one of which you just have to go, it's genetic. That there is genetic variation, and just people are different. People are unique. So there's that. There's also that thing that I was describing where early on people's brain gets formed in a particular direction in a particular way, and then that pattern plays out ongoingly. So early history and genetics generally account for much of that. And then there is the current environment. And that's what we are able to shift a little bit. We're able to get into the room with somebody and have a conversation and begin to address the predicting brain and give it a little dose of reality of its own impulse of healing. We have this self-healing impulse that gets lost in all the noise of the day-to-day and all the challenges of the past. And then we work with them. And we have to work differently with people that are more, say, constricted. rather than those that are more expansive. And it's just we learn to attune to those different styles, some of which goes into understanding the relationship of the person to fight and flight and freeze. So freeze, for instance, is going to be more retracted, more conservative, kind of like things are just a little bit too much. And then if you have some mojo of like fight or flight, fight in particular, then you might be active and engaged and out there and moving around, exploring, finding things out. So it's all about the attunement to those phases that makes our coaching work, actually.
Well, and Rochelle is a great example of somebody who's made a huge shift over the last year and a half or so. Because when I first met her, she was all over the place, and it was stress this, and there was this, that, and the other stress, and it over time. And because she was stressing me out at one point, and it's like, just, let it be, just relax. The gospel according to Paul McCartney, let it be. And that has helped her to a great degree to not, to also to, as she puts it, to surrender and to not fight everything that's out there, because what's going to happen is going to happen. Is that part of the coaching that you do?
It sure is. I'm interested, Rochelle, in your story a little bit. I'm looking forward to hearing some about that. But yes, that present moment awareness is golden, really, and we've got it. Orientation is this connecting to the environment through the senses. That is the way to feed your brain the here and now. So instead of thinking or emotions or sensation, I'm just going to be, and we could do this with your audience, just be like letting the eyes go where they want to go. And I'm staying in the senses, just in the visual channel, which helps me then be a little bit more in the here and now. And if I'm more in the here and now, I'm not so freaked out. I can make better choices about how I'm spending my mental energies.
So, Rochelle, have I misstated anything that what I said about you? I want to make sure I get that right.
No, not at all. Kevin, it has me thinking, because Steve, you probably had people come to you and they're like, I didn't know I could be this person. Like, I thought about it and I had ideas and I saw people I wanted to be like, but I never thought that I could embody that myself. And I think what's weird for me is I wouldn't say that I went from fight to flight or either or, but like you said, kind of where are your feet at right now and what control of that are you in? Because it was always here and then it was there, like Kevin said. And I know he would tell me, you can't keep worrying about these things. They don't matter right now because you can't control it. You have to just continue on with what you're doing, because I want to fix everything. I want to help everybody. I want to change this and I want to do that. And, it's never enough getting done and it's never a good enough job. And then it was just like, okay, but what if I just stopped doing all of that? And for me, it wasn't growing outside. It was kind of like retracting and coming back to who even I was at that time, because I was living outside.
Oh, that is brilliant. That is brilliant. And just speaks so much to the value of relationships and the environments you choose. Like you are in a relationship where there's real support coming through and you're able to use it. Some people don't seem to be able to access, even when they're shown, hey, here's a better way that can make your life okay. Some people are just so stuck that they can't make those choices. We work with those folks a lot. But for you to have that kind of support from Kevin and the environment there has really made just a huge difference, in part because you could apply it. And that's fantastic. That's epic.
Yeah. I think the only thing it's kind of funny, Kevin, because I was thinking about telling you this morning, but I was going to say something along the lines of being stressed about being not stressed. Like, your natural brain is like, you have to have something to worry about. Like, you can't just, it's almost like if I'm not worried about something, then I'm not focused on anything, or I'm not working towards a goal or whatever that is. And it was hard because I'm still fighting myself every day. And I think the hardest part about it, which I want to touch into, that you've brought up multiple times, is your environment. And as I've become who I'm wanting to embody, I realize once again, like it happened years before, that I want everything to change. I want my relationships to change. I want to set new boundaries, and I want a new environment. And people are a little shooken up. They don't know how to understand it. And I've come to a point where I don't really explain much. So I'd like to see what you have to say about that when we come back from the break.
And Steve, I was just thinking, is what she just described just another method of control, or is she truly letting go? That is.
Are we going to come back? Is that going to be the cliffhanger here at the break?
That's going to be the cliffhanger, yes, sir. And we'll be right back in a minute and 10. Don't anybody go anywhere.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
As you go about your daily life, look closer. As you gather with family and friends who love and support you, look closer. There are youth right in your community who don't have the home, warmth, and healing you have. So look closer. Every year across America, a staggering 4.2 million youth are homeless or trafficked. And for 50 years, Covenant House has worked relentlessly to keep them safe and protected. Tonight, 2,000 young people will sleep safely in a Covenant House bed. And tomorrow, they will wake up surrounded by love. They get clean clothes, hot meals, medical care, and a safe place to sleep. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In sites across America to help them fulfill the great promise of their lives. So look closer at Covenant House. To help or get help, go to covenanthouse.org.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, and Rochelle is right there, the dancing one. And by the way, she took that picture that's behind her. She is, and I want to talk about this as well, but I want to get in, because what she was saying sounded to me like just another form of control. Rochelle, does that make any kind of sense to you?
A little bit, but I think when you have control of something, it is only up to you to make the difference. You can't blame anybody else or wonder why you're not controlling it when it is in your control only, type of thing. Like being in your power, you know how we talk about that? Would you agree, Steve, or am I crazy?
Don't put me in the middle of this right now. No, I'm a trained professional. I know better than that. I have a few things to say. One is we feel the same way. I think the union of these two sides is this, which is once you get enough control and you're not feeling so chaotic, then you can begin to make better choices about your next direction. And one of the great choices of a next direction is exploration. Like, I'm going to go toward the unknown because I feel secure enough now in who I am that I can step out and be engaged in the bigger life mysteries and bigger questions, because I'm not so chaotic. I'm not worried about losing it, in the next moment, or not knowing where my next meal is going to come from. I can get onto the bigger things. Sometimes we talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and once you get some of those basic things controlled, basically in shape, then you can begin to move on to some of the higher order meaning of life sorts of things.
Yeah, I think it's unique too, Kevin, how that was your perspective, and then my perspective was different, because if there was a bear chasing or coming close to me and Kevin, he would flight and I would fight. I would run straight towards the bear and he would run straight away from the bear.
I would renegotiate your contract if I were you.
Kevin, I'll always protect you. At least you know that.
Yeah, well, because she loves animals. Like she will pet. Steve, I know this is going to just gross you out, but she will pet a spider.
Yeah, some of them have attitudes, like bees. Depending on the bee, it has a different personality. Like everything has personality, and I think that's where people kind of get lost in. I want people to be more like me, and I need to find my people. And how you're talking about stepping outside of that because there's a lot of growth where that happens. People around me who come around and they don't like cats, or they don't like spiders, or they don't like nature, have them hang out with me maybe 2 or 3 times. They're going to be holding spiders and touching snakes and walking through the river. And there's so much more meaning in those things. And it makes me think, Steve, how far out have we come? We're in an electronic world, so that alone brings stress, but through what we used to actually use as medicine, a lot of people say, well, I'm so glad it's not like that anymore. We have medicine and we have doctors and we have this and that. Well, they had that too, just in a different sense. And there's probably so many plants and herbs and parts of an animal that can be used for what it was intended for, rather than all these medicines and creams and things, right?
Yeah, I love the sound of that. Coming back more to our Aboriginal roots, really, back to our ancestral life ways. There's so much that is so deeply resonant in that. I think that is nurturing for us for sure. So, yeah, I love the sound of that.
I have to ask you too, a lot of people tell me, well, you're a survivalist. I don't see why that's bad or negative at all, because if something were to happen, I'd have 30 people outside my door asking me, Berchelle, what are we going to do? And you know what I would tell them, and they'd still trust me, is I have no idea, but we're going to figure it out. And it's kind of funny how that works, because I'm like, I don't think survival is bad. We naturally do that anyway with our minds. We're just not experiencing it with a bear coming to break in our hut at night type of thing.
Yeah, the bear is probably in our own mind coming in and causing problems. And we have a saying here, which is just like bear might break into the cabin, but it doesn't mean you have to feed it. Like that's going to happen. These problems, these issues. It's the most natural thing to start thinking about what the problem could be or what's wrong. It's called the negativity bias in science. Our attention goes especially to what's wrong on a regular basis. And so that's a big challenge for us, because it keeps the intensity and inner intensity up. I'm worrying about things that haven't even happened yet. And that keeps my system jacked up, and something we deal with quite a lot.
Yeah.
And people tend to think of I have family members, and my family members have all thought about the worst case scenario. Oh, this could be bad. Oh, this could be worse. How much worse could it be? I don't know, but it could be. Rather than to look at it from a positive perspective and say what's going to happen is going to happen, and we will survive it, or we won't. And to let it go and to let it be. I, for one, think that it's a lot more fun to look at it from a positive perspective and to see where it's going to go and how it's going to go work out. And I know that in your program, which is Organic Intelligence, organicintelligence.org is where you go. And you're trying to get people to think in a more positive light, in a positive way, because isn't that a better way to live your life and a lot more fun?
It's certainly my choice for sure. And the question our coaches ask is not like, how could you be more positive, but how is whatever is happening right now revealing something important in this moment? Like we ask the question of ourselves, what's right about this? Even if it is like, oh, there's I'm worried about what's coming in the future, and I'm depressed. I might say something like, well, one thing that we know about depressed people is they see the world more realistically. That is, we are shining the light on the aspect of their experience that hasn't been thought of, that does have a positive meaning. Like, oh, okay, so I'm actually seeing things more realistic. So I'm not bad or wrong for thinking negative. I just haven't found the aspect of it that is actually meaningful, important, and of value.
We tend to throw things out there like bad, and it's going to be worse, and those things, and we just do it naturally because isn't that kind of how we were raised? Don't put your hand on the stove. Don't go out into the middle of the street. Stop it and be quiet, and don't no, you're not smart enough to say anything, and children should be seen and not heard. I mean, that kind of stuff, it propagates our whole growing up years. I spent mine in my room. I was just so happy about that.
Right, the oasis right there that was happening.
What was happening in my world was it was like I was too loud and I talked too much. So it was mind your manners, go to your room.
And turn the stereo down.
Exactly. And that, so, but we all have got issues from our childhood. Rochelle has issues. We all do. And you teach us how to get through them so that we can live the life that we knew that we wanted before we even got here. But it hasn't played out the way we'd hoped.
Yeah, that's so true. That's right. There's this great study that showed that infants, when they're born and with mom, there are very few of those prohibitions, like don't do that, they're wrong, very few. And then when kiddos start, 11 months, 12 months, they start to be in motion, that's where it comes up, and it shoots up to 100 a day. Don't wait, stop, wait. And all of that inhibition on the system. And it's mighty hard for us to come out of that inhibition. And so part of what we do in our treatment process is that we encourage people in this free association conversation just to let it fly, just to say whatever comes up so that they can begin to get used to what might come out if they are not just totally, put under the blanket of that conditioning of the early years.
Do you see that through this process you do with people that there's steps to it that are maybe harder or really even something that people find the most helpful that really makes that switch happen and it kind of starts building momentum?
Yeah, two things. One is orientation. Once people get a hold of orientation, then that's a big deal. It's a big deal because we are so hooked on the big cure. We're going to do the ayahuasca. We're going to do the sweat lodge. We're going to do the mushrooms. We're going to do the 15-mile hike all alone and naked in the woods or something. We're going for the big effect. And our systems are so tender. Our systems are so sensitive that orientation seems boring to people. It's like, what, I'm supposed to just look around the room? Is that my thing? But it's actually connecting to the environment through the senses, which is a mindfulness process, and letting the brain in on what's actually happening in the world around. And it's not going to be the 1812 overture, it's a tree. But a tree can be really okay if you're there for it. So many people feel relief, but some people are like, ho hum, can we please do something more exciting than connect to the environment through the senses? But it's so essential. So those are the two sides. It's really hard for people sometimes. And on the other hand, it's like, oh, this is the most amazing thing since sliced bread or something. So both sides.
Well, and when you're talking about being in the forest and you walk up to a big old tree that's been there for 300-400 years and you put your hands on it and you can feel it vibrating. You can feel that it's alive. That, to me, some people may say, oh, hum, it's 500 years old and it's alive, big deal. And for me, this is a big deal because it's huge for us. We need to take our last break of the day, and Steve, when we come back, I would love to talk about how intuition comes into play with all of this, because I think intuition is an important aspect of who we are, and a lot of us poo-poo it because, oh no, that's witchcraft or whatever they it's whatever term they use for it. But it is an important thing that we do. Rochelle's got it. I know she's got it. And we'll be right back. And listen to this, everybody. This is cool, and I hope everybody listens to it and applies it on a daily basis. The strength of staying kind from your friends at Positive Talk Radio. Kindness is not weakness. It takes real strength to stay kind in a world that often rewards anger, ego, and control. Being kind means choosing to act from your values, not your wounds. It means showing grace even when no one's watching. But kindness doesn't mean being passive. It doesn't mean letting people take advantage of your time, your energy, or your peace. You can be kind and still say no. You have a soft heart with firm boundaries. The strongest people I know are the ones who choose compassion without losing themselves. They've been hurt. They've been tested. And still, they choose to love and lead and to lift others anyway. Kindness is not about pleasing everybody. It's about honoring who you are and how you treat others, even when it's hard. So stay kind, stay human, and stay strong. And always remember this, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got. And Rochelle, who are we talking to today?
We are talking to Steve. Steve has a website, organicintelligence.org. Just this first page, looking at your website, there's so much to learn. And you talk about so many things. But I want to let Kevin get back into his question. We're sadly running out of time.
Well, and I wanted to get your input as to the intuitive side of life, because we all, I know this, at least for me. I can't speak for anybody else, but I'll get messages. I will get messages through music. I will be thinking about something and I'll see a billboard. I pay attention to those things because they matter to me. And I think everybody gets them. Is it true that some people just ignore them, or is intuition an important part of our overall health and psyche?
I love the question. Thank you for popping that into our mind site here. Jung said that intuition is knowing, but you don't know how you know. And so that's a nice description for that. And I think of two things in that. One is I really like your framing of this, which is that it's ordinary. It's not this extraordinary thing where, you're Nostradamus and we're going to see what's happening, 100 years from now. And it is such a much more grounded thing. And it's, I think, something that really makes us human. And in terms of cultivating intuition, we think of it in terms of, again, that growth of bandwidth, which means that all of my channels of information, my images, sensation, yes, what comes from orientation, meanings, the affect, we call it the isoma channels. These isoma channels are now talking to each other. They are connecting and feeding into each other. So the images are talking to the sensations, are talking to the meanings, are talking to the connection with the environment. In other words, all of our information is coming together to then create and sort of reveal a different quality of knowing than just in the M channel or the mind channel, meaning channel. So when you put it all together, then you get the possibility of intuition. And that's a greater intensity. So you got to sometimes grow bandwidth for that, for trying to get all of this interaction and then have more information. It takes some extra room in the processor. And so we think that growing capacity is the big deal. And growing capacity is different, I think, from what usual, sort of cognitive treatment might be, because we think of that as like arranging things more orderly. Like you have a dorm room and you realize, oh, well, all my books and clothes are on the floor. And so I'm going to make some shelves with a couple of boards and some concrete blocks. And then you have shelves and you put your books on there and they're off the floor and you can walk in the room again, which is so nice. You can get a date. So, all of this stuff is good, but that's rearranging. That's ordering what's there. When we're talking about growing bandwidth, we're talking about knocking down a wall and taking over the room next to you. So your space actually grows. And when you have more space like that, one of the things that you can get is more information from more channels, and that can give you intuition.
When it's crazy too, because you're talking about getting more information while being still. You're not going out, you're not running around, you're not asking questions, you're not doing all these unnecessary things. But without being present, you kind of can't be aware of those intuition things that are always in front of you. And you correct me if I'm wrong, but doing this work with you will teach somebody that no matter where they go or what situation they find themselves in, they have their own power and they can ground themselves and come back to the present moment to then make what we would call a rational decision, not just a reaction. And I put that in our notes. We're going to use it. Be proactive rather than reactive.
That's right,
So,
because that's what the brain is doing, is helping us be proactive. And yes, being able to get that sense of like grounding and present, being able to choose to direct one's attention is a big deal. And sometimes people just don't have it, and it's going to take a little initial work. We have a coach's directory on our site, so you could work with an OI coach and then begin to do that initial work. Or we have a course called the End of Trauma course for personal resiliency. You could do that. That would help you feel like you have a choice. And that's what we're trying to get. A lot of us are privileged to be able to direct our attention in certain ways. Other people, the mind is being drawn back and forth, and they are at the mercy of whatever patterns is happening. They have very little control. So
but
I love
anyone
that.
can change it, right? There's nobody that doesn't have any option of creating that, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That can for sure grow. And then the other thing, just to tag on to what you were saying, is yes, we can come back to ourselves and we can make better choices. And if we have a community of support, like you've created, y'all have created a kind of community of mutual support here, that makes a massive difference as well. So there is also the community aspect of support, the social support, the people that care about you and are really voting for your best interests.
I gotta ask you. I've never brought this up on any of the shows that I've done, and I've done a few. When I was playing football in high school, I was a nose guard. I weighed 170 pounds, so I was a little nose guard, and I was right across from the center. And at the end of the season, my coach said at the awards banquet, he said, "I don't know how he does this, but especially when you're practically beneath the ground," is what he said, because every reverse or double reverse that the opposition ran against us, I stopped from the nose guard position because I knew what they were doing. Is that intuition or experience?
Intuition is informed by experience. We have this ability to map things and to have the bandwidth. And you've got some intellectual horsepower, Kevin. I mean, there's that too. So you had a pretty good start on that. Yeah. so meaning that you can synthesize a lot of different information and just know you're not being slowed down by having to think about it either. It's like, oh, what are we gonna let? Looks like these pull into the right, so they're going over there. It's instinct. It's in motion. And all of that is enabled when you can reduce the amount of inhibition on that system, which we've talked about before. So that's the other. We're looking at these variables of inhibition, disinhibition, and finding out where the system can come back into sync and in its appropriate ups and downs, with just enough inhibition at the right time and just enough disinhibition at the right time to grow its cycles of bandwidth.
And you can live an extraordinary life if you pay attention to it, and stuff. That is so cool, Steve. It is great to have you here, and Brachelle's going to tell you what we're going to do next.
Yes, I want you to have the opportunity to share with our audience how to reach you, maybe even new things coming up or something that you have seen that is in your program that's the most helpful for people who are just curious. And then any message you'd like to leave our viewers with to be able to think about through the day.
No, thank you so much. First of all, thank you both for being so welcoming to me and really resonating so hard with this impulse of compassion for people and really supporting people from those near and far. Your reach is amazing. So thank you for using your influence for good in the world. That's touching to me. So thank you. In
Thank
terms
you.
of, yeah, for sure. Happy to be partners in the big mission.
Absolutely, and because I don't mean to interrupt you, Steve, but you are phenomenal. Your program is designed to help people answer that question: why am I here, and what am I here to do? Because I don't get it, and
How do I
didn't
figure
know
it
either.
out?
Yeah, how do I figure it out? And you're giving them the answers so that they can help themselves, because you can't fix anybody, but you can give them the tools that they can help themselves.
Totally. So the tools that we provide, one is that I would say, if your viewers, if you still have not given up, if you still have some hope and you feel like you have something to give, we can put you into the OI coach training, and you can come out and being a skilled helper at the end of that. So if you have compassion and you have bandwidth to be able to give to somebody else, that coaching program is there. You don't have to be a licensed therapist. You don't have to have any of that. If you are a caring human being, we want to talk to you. So that's on the website. The other thing is, if you are struggling, if your situation is got you on the back foot and you're not feeling able to make the choices you need to make, one is, if it's addiction, get help for that right now. Tackle the addiction thing first. If you possibly can, get into some help, whether that would be in an AA group or other collectives. Addiction is your number one agenda if that's on your list. And then for us, if you're struggling outside of that, then really think about the End of Trauma course. That is made to tap into the way that your biology wants to become self-healing and self-organizing, and that will get you in places you haven't seen before. And then lastly, part of what both of those programs are going to focus on is the value of orientation as connecting to the environment through the senses, and do more of that. We've been sold by therapy and a whole host of other programs that you got to feel it to heal it. You got to feel your feelings, name your thoughts, watch your sensations. None of that is the first agenda. First agenda is being able to get the attention outside, not all of that inside stuff, the outside, getting the attention into the world, and let your senses ground you in the here and now and tether you into the here and now. Help your brain do that predicting so it gets you ready, so you can feel ready for what's coming.
That sounds like an incredible program, doesn't it, Rochelle?
Yeah, I'm going to sign up. Maybe all three. Yeah. Why not? I could use it.
Steve, I got to tell you, she signs up for everything because watching her grow and learn and develop, it's just phenomenal for me. And having someone like you here to talk to us, it puts whole new thoughts in people's heads about a better way to be, about how they can and a lot of people, this is positive talk, and a lot of people say, oh, you're just Pollyanna-ish and you have that's just not so. It is actually a thing to be. Do you agree with that, Steve?
Oh, totally. We say all the time, the positive approach and the positive feelings are there so that we grow the capacity to be with everything, the all of life, from despair to ecstasy, from grief and loss to hope and joy. That this baseline of positive interaction builds capacity so that we can be with everything of life, including what is most difficult.
Well, Rochelle earlier said that if you're around her for 3 days, she'll teach you how to pet a spider and a snake and to walk in the river. Okay, 1 out of 3 I'm up for.
Boring. That's so boring. But we have to have you back, Steve, because we have so much more to talk about when it comes to mind framing and things. And I'm hoping next time we hear from you, you might have an idea of maybe writing a book or something. Just maybe.
Okay. That's probably intuition, isn't it, Rochelle?
Something like that. I think you need a book. It would be, I couldn't imagine what you would be able to put in those pages. But thank you for spending this time with us, Steve, and making something like this available to the human world, because we need it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for being partners in the process.
Of course.
We need it kind of desperately at this particular moment in time. But and everybody understand it's going to be okay. People like Steve are going to help make it so. So thank you, and thank you, Rochelle, for being here. We've got a whole brand new opening or closing. Watch this, everybody. It's really cool. Thank you for being part of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, where stories inspire and voices remind us of what truly matters. May today's conversation give you hope, courage, and a reason to keep moving forward. And just remember, till next time, be kind to one another, because each other's all we've got.